Well, joining us for more on this, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, who's followed these developments right from the onset, and Vineet Bolinchkar, the head of research at Ventura Securities. Thank you both very much for being with us. So, Abhijit, it seems that things were a bit intense for Anderson, at times all encompassing, and so he's sort of ridden his bike into the sunset, as it were. Do you believe him when he says that things got too intense, so I'm done with it, I'm gone? Or do you believe that there is a writing on the wall which he has seen, that what he has done will not be acceptable, perhaps to the new Trump administration?
So Vishnu, the first part of this is, all short selling, all stock market trading, especially the kind of short selling positions you require, are extremely intense, mentally taxing ventures. There is nobody in the stock market who is there for an easy life. It is never an easy life. It's a very profitable life, but it is never an easy life. You meet any stock trader, be it in London, be it in New York, be it in Bombay, they all lead extremely stressful lives. This is not something, this is not a realization, this is not the road to Damascus and the epiphany he had on the road to Damascus moment. It is clearly hiding a lot more than it says. Notice in that statement, he further goes on to say, I'm going to make YouTube videos about how I did my investigations. The main thing we want to know is, who are your funders? Who are your promoters? Who are your board of directors? Who are your clients? He discloses none of this. Now, the clients, maybe you have a confidentiality clause, but you do not have that with the board of directors. So much so that if you go to their website, they don't even have a registered office address to show you. This has always been an extraordinarily shady organization. And pretty much, I completely agree with what Mahesh Jethmalani said. This, if it walks like a George Soros, if it talks like a George Soros, and if it quacks like a George Soros, it is most probably a George Soros front. Remember, short selling and exploiting systemic distortions, whether real or false, is exactly what George Soros did in the Southeast Asian financial crisis of 2008 or 9, was it? This is the exact same pattern that these guys are following out here. Remember also, of all the reports they've released, some 10, 15 reports, none of them resulted in a prosecution. One resulted in an SEC inquiry, which in 2021, which then went nowhere. Only one with Nikola trucks, which were meant to be, Nikola Tesla, what Tesla was, as far as Nikola was meant to be for trucks, went actually stuck. And Nikola, of course, these weren't the first guys to say it. If you remember with Nikola, a lot of people were flagging red lights way before Hindenburg came up with their report on Nikola. So this is a classic case where they just hurl muck. They're really lucky if something sticks because it's fantastic for their short position.
Yeah. Sir, Mr. Bolinchkar, if I can come to you next, just to add to what Abhijit is saying, Nate Anderson is a small player in this, right? He may have been the face, in a sense, of this operation. Do you also believe that this was part of a larger effort at hitting out not just at the Adani group, but India itself?
No, I definitely think that there was more than meets the eye. And one thing what we have to understand by SEBI is that when you take a short position and you release a report, you are actually indulging in insider trading, or you're front running your own report. So that itself was a negative action, not propounded by any of the international regulators. And when you are profiting from an action which is preceding your biased reporting, you're indulging in criminal activity, and SEBI frowns very severely on this. The fact that there is while the tom-toms about lack of shrouded transactions which he's looking to unearth, as Abhijit pointed out, they themselves are shrouded in mystery and lack of any authentic information about themselves being provided, is very, very contrary to the kind of claims that they are making against the Adanis. And I think that Turkey has come to roost, and I believe that the investigation will go further. and somewhere or something, Nathan Anderson will be in the docks.
If you associate the deep state, Abhijit, with a formation or a group of people or parties which exists obviously during the Biden administration, and something which has perhaps impacted India and Bangladesh, it's impacted India economically as a result of this. There's one side of things, but the other side is that we've had great relations with the Biden administration, close strategic partners, et cetera, et cetera. So how does it work that all of this is happening when the Biden administration is in control and appears to be friendly with us at so many levels? There's a great deal of trade happening, high technology, et cetera, but something like this is simultaneously targeting us. What is the logic of doing that?
Vishnu, the American state always functions at counter purposes with each other. There are silos out there. It's a very Augustan system. Like, Caesar Augustus centralized everything on himself. It has pros and cons. When you have a president like Biden, who's actually very pro-India, but who's not always all there, he's probably there about an hour or 2 hours in a day. You had all these silos infighting constantly. Simple example. The NSA, Jake Sullivan and Anthony Blinken were great friends till the Kabul withdrawal. And that the fiasco of the Kabul withdrawal soured relations between the two. So you had Jake Sullivan actually playing India defense and the Trade Secretary, Gina Raimondo, playing India defense, while Anthony Blinken was actually going around releasing reports. He was releasing the international religious freedom reports and things like that, which were harshly condemning India. You had all these segments within the Democratic Party which were going at India, and you didn't have a president whose attention span or cognitive abilities were there all the time to be able to monitor all of this. So it's actually, and if you notice, they do this with a lot of countries. You've seen this. They were actually spying on Angela Merkel, even though Obama and Angela Merkel had the best of relationships. And this they admit to themselves. This sort of duality of policy. It's not that if you're friends that you're not going to do something to bring them a peg down in things, because remember, a single, an absolute majority government will always be much tougher to deal with than a non-majority government in a coalition where certain levers can be pulled and played with.
Mr. Bollinger, how does India protect, or how do we protect ourselves from short sellers in the future?
Well, you cannot protect yourself from short sellers because short selling is integral part of the process of buying and selling stocks. When you have a futures exchange, there are short sellers who will come in and buy and sell. So short selling, you cannot protect yourself. The only way that you can protect is to have clear accountability of the KYC which the SEBI is taking into consideration. There is also a lot of activity which goes into monitoring the concentration of the position, whether you are a established player, and there are a lot of laws and penalties which SEBI has built into the system, and which will dissuade short sellers. But short selling as such, perpetrators of crime will continue to exist as long as humanity exists.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you both very much for joining us. It is all unraveling as far as Hindenburg is concerned, but where is this all leading? And if it is Soros, will there be a lot more that emerges? And with the Trump administration coming in, will we actually see what the goal was about all of this? Will, in a sense, India, not just the Adani group, but India and our economy get justice? And all the millions of people who lost their money for what appears to be a larger game against our country. We leave it there.